Our top five today is top five March Madness games, and I think we all picked games that we all watched. So I'll let JBM get right into his list.
All right, so I was a little late to the party preparing for this. I originally said I was just going to do games I watched. It quickly became a list of games that happened in the last decade, more or less. I guess completely, entirely in the last decade. So number five, I have Butler versus Duke in the 2010 championship, just because it was such a crazy, true Cinderella, just wild run that Butler went on. And they almost won, and it would have probably been the greatest buzzer beater of all time had it gone in. But it was a great game the whole time. Butler never backed down. Truly David versus Goliath, but at the end of the day, Goliath did come out on top. Number four, I said Wichita State versus Kentucky in 2014. It was the second round, and it was total Final Four energy. It was the year that Kentucky one of the years Kentucky went to the championship, and didn't quite get it done, but it was the tweak year, and it was crazy. Wichita State was undefeated. It was really, really crazy. It was who was on that team? The
Julius
Wiggins
Randle.
kid.
The two
Well, I meant on
twins
the Wichita State team.
Oh,
So,
they had
Van
dude
Early, Van
with the
Fleet.
bowl cut.
yeah.
With the bowl cut.
And Andrew Wiggins' brother, right? But yeah, that was a fun one. Yeah,
I didn't know
his
that.
brother.
I
Yeah,
don't think
because
he
he almost
played.
went there. He was like the sixth man.
Oh, well.
We'll have to look it up.
Yeah.
Later. Number three, I had Kentucky again versus Wisconsin in 2015. This time, Kentucky was undefeated and was probably the best team I've ever seen. And it just didn't happen. And Wisconsin, with two white dudes, just took over. And it was a pretty wild game in the Final Four.
Bro, you're crazy because the Kentucky team with Anthony Davis is so much better than any player ever. That he made the team the best team ever that you've seen.
Anthony Davis was ridiculous. Number two was the Michigan versus Kansas game in the Sweet 16. I've mentioned this before. It was probably my personal most excited moment for one of my teams. Michigan was down by 10 with a minute left. Trey Burke just took over, just cold-blooded hammers a three from probably 10 or 12 feet from behind the line with 3 seconds left, force overtime. Michigan ultimately wins and ends up going on to the championship game where they never lost. And then number one was IU. Oh, this is from the prior decade. IU versus Duke, because for a good IU game we have to go back 20 years. I can't remember if it was 01 or 02, but Duke and IU played in the Sweet 16, and IU was down 20 at halftime. And IU came storming back in the second half, took the lead. They were up by 4 with 6 seconds left. And who was it? Was it Chris Duhon, I think? Somebody shot a three, and Dane Fife fouls him. Literally the only thing you can't do. The game is over. You just don't foul. There's 5 seconds left. He fouls him. Dude makes the three. He missed the free throw, and Jared Jeffries forgot to box out. Carlos Boozer jumps up, has the ball right here, a foot from the rim. He's a giant human, and he forgot what he's supposed to do.
He didn't dunk it.
And he just
didn't
missed,
dunk it.
and IU won, and it was so crazy. I remember everybody in Indiana, because there was fireworks going off all over the place. It was pretty wild.
Yeah.
So that is my list.
Those are all good games. I remember I didn't watch it. I actually got to school and all the IU, all my IU friends had their IU stuff on, and I was like, "Oh, did they win?" And they're like, "Yeah."
They went all the way to the championship.
Yeah, but that, I just assumed they weren't winning, so I didn't watch that game. And they did, and dude, Carlos Boozer, you just dunk it, dude. You're the best center in college basketball.
What was so crazy? It has to be the biggest comeback anybody ever had versus Duke at that point in time. It was a 20-point game in the second half.
They were down 24.
Yeah, it was
Something
wild.
Yeah.
And obviously, I know there's a massive exclusion from my list, but that's because I literally only watched the very end of the game.
Which one? Oh,
I mean,
right.
yeah.
I
I was going to say.
I got you. Okay. Well, with that, since Piano Man introduced us in, I'll go here and then you go last. All right.
Sounds good.
Sound good? All right, cool. So my number 5, number 11, George Mason against top-seeded UConn in 2006 in the Elite Eight was the first
Lewis.
True amazing Cinderella run that I remember. Okay, like they had this improbable win the game before. I think it was against Washington, and then and not only did like it wasn't like UMBC taking out Virginia and they ended up winning by 20. It wasn't this like improbable thing. George Mason was clawing all game. In regulation, the final score was 86-84. All right, and their tallest player was 6'6". I mean, it was just
Is that not the? I thought the game went to like 3 overtimes.
What was it in overtime? Or maybe it was. I don't know. It was 86-84. It was awesome. Like, and the whole thing where the guy like dove to get it and it went out of bounds, and George Mason got the ball again and scored and went up for good. Like, it was just awesome.
Yeah, I remember like it kept feeling like, okay, UConn finally took over. Like this is finally, it's over now. They took the lead, and then George Mason just never quit.
Yeah, it was.
I remember. You know how you go outside and you play basketball and you act like you're like, oh, Michael Jordan or Kobe or whatever. We'd be like, Jai Lewis. He was the guy on George Mason. We'd be like, I'm Jai Lewis.
It was 1 overtime. You're right. Yes, it was 1 overtime. So it wasn't regulation, but still, 86-84. I mean, that's a high scoring game for a mid major like that. An 11 seed.
Wait, was that an Elite Eight game?
Elite Eight, first 11 seed to make the Final Four. So yeah, it was really dope. I have 2 in 2008 back to back. So number 4 is Western Kentucky 12 seed versus Drake. In the first round. This actually, like, in the ESPYs, won, like, the best game of the tournament. That game was, like, the top dog mid-major that had, like, 2 losses all year. And then, the other mid-major that was really good, that was completely disrespected, who ended up giving UCLA a game in the Sweet 16, just throwing haymakers the whole game. And in the final second, when you think, oh, a team with Courtney Lee and Danny Rump and some of these other guys, they're going to win this game. Nah, it was like the random white dude who all he does is shoot threes, knocking down like a 30-footer to win. And I just remember I watched that with my cousins, and it was just an awesome, awesome game. One of the best buzzer beaters. Mostly because it came from kind of an improbable guy, Like, he was the last person I wanted to touch the ball and made the shot. Also in 2008, so we go from round 1 to the end, is Kansas versus Memphis. Derrick Rose misses the free throw. Mario Chalmers goes up the court, drills a 3 to send it into overtime for Kansas to win their first championship since '88. That game was just like, that was all 4 1 seeds made the Final Four, and as much as we love upsets, that Final Four was awesome. It was the 4 best teams and the 2 best teams in the championship, giving us a great game. So that's number 3. And my number 2, JBM stole it from me, Kentucky versus Wichita State. That game was just one of the most exciting games. I mean, it was back and forth and back and forth. And it was a Kentucky team that, had they not gone on a little run, wouldn't have even made the tournament against undefeated Wichita State. And Kentucky just clicked. And one of the forgotten things about that game is James Young hit essentially the game winner. He made a 3 with 4 seconds to go. In which started off, James Young hits a 3 with 4 seconds to go. Aaron Harrison hits a 3 with 30 seconds to go. Then he does it again with 5 and again with 3. So, like, 4 games in a row with a buzzer beater. And the greatest run of a team that I like ever. Even though they didn't win the championship that year, they were an 8 seed and had 4 wins against 4 teams that they should not have won against, and that started it, and that was the best of the games. And then number 1, it's the best basketball game I've watched, maybe ever, is Villanova versus UNC in 2017. I mean, it was just...
yeah. I only saw the last 3 minutes of that game.
I watched the whole game. I mean, it was 2 masterful teams playing at the highest level. And then, who was the guy from North Carolina? Marcus Page, does a windmill 3 with, 4 seconds to go, drills it. And that's the end. It's still probably in my list of top 5 games if that's the buzzer beater. But it's not. It's Villanova makes a 35-foot shot to win. And not even, again, similar to Western. Wasn't it their power forward that does shoot threes but isn't not necessarily the guy you want shooting from 35 feet, right?
He's a big guy. He's not, he wasn't some point guard.
Yeah, he was their power forward. And I mean, he shot threes. It wasn't oh, this is his first 3 ever. But right. I think if you're Villanova, you might want a different dude shooting that shot, but it was still awesome. So that's my list.
Very cool. Well, I got I think 3 of the same that we've already said across the 2 of you. So my number 5 was Kansas versus Memphis. And the reason that's on my top 5 was not only because of the buzzer beater to send it to overtime, but I was with a friend. The buzzer beater went in, so it was kind of late, but we had to go back to his house. So we're like, all right, if this ends up tied going to overtime, we got to go back to your house and watch the end of the game. So we were driving 100 trying to get back to his house to watch overtime. So it's a good game for me, but it has a little more inexperience for me as well. From the same year was Drake versus WKU. That's before I went to WKU or knew I was going to go to WKU. And I just remember that as being the most epic, NCAA game. Not only because it went to overtime, but so it had a buzzer beater in overtime to win the game, but also to get to overtime, both teams hit back-to-back crazy shots to get into overtime. So it was just a great game, awesome game. My number 3 was Duke versus Butler. I still wish Gordon Hayward hit that shot because it'd be my number 1 if he did.
Dude, it'd be everybody's number 1 if it went in.
I mean, it was so close though. It just lit out.
Yeah.
Crazy.
If he would have made that shot, it would have been bigger than the Leitner shot. It would have been so
Easy.
crazy.
Oh yeah,
easy. Yeah, my number 2, one I've mentioned before on the podcast, Stephen F. Austin versus VCU. It was in 2015. 4-point play with 3 seconds left. They're down by 4, and they hit a 4-point play. What are you doing, VCU? But, hey, it makes for great basketball,
Yep.
My number 1, it's got a little tie to me. I was in Kansas City when this game happened. It was Oklahoma State versus Georgia Tech, Final Four. The buzzer beater.
Oh,
it's probably the last time Georgia Tech made it to the NCAA tournament. I have no idea.
Jared Jack, right?
Jared Jack was on that team, yeah. Will Bynum made the last second reverse layup to tie it, or I think to win the game, actually. So they advanced to the finals to get smashed. No, that was Chris Bosh was on the team before that, the year before that.
Okay.
Before he went to become an all-star or a Hall of Famer.
Right. All right.
I don't know how Chris Bosh made the NBA Hall of Fame, but hey, whatever.
Dude, your boy Josh Pastner.
The right people. One honorable mention is, I couldn't even pick one, but Florida Gulf Coast. That whole run where they were just dunking on people, and everyone was like, "Who the heck?" Yeah, they're like, "Who is this team?"
Yeah,
it was Dunk City.
Yeah,
because
the Clippers were Lob City, so they were That was a good. There's been a lot of fun Cinderella-ish things, but sometimes remember the run necessarily the game. That's why the George Mason game for me stood out because
I forgot about that game.
Yeah,
that was a great game.
I mean, it was just awesome. All right, well, we're actually making good on time there, like we talked about Piano Man. So, kind of, we are because my timer is doing well. So Piano
You
Man,
just
I know you were.
wait. You just showed it, and we were 20 minutes in.
Huh? Well,
Did it say 41?
I started it earlier than I wanted to, but I'm keeping good
Okay.
time.
Okay.
So
Whatever you say. Whatever you say.
yeah. So